All right, you're listening to another episode of Geek Vice, the official podcast of awesome coffee mugs.
Welcome, everybody, to Geek Vice, episode 127, proving any vice with enough geek can become a virtue. My name is Morph. That man over there is Kip. Good evening, Kip.
Good evening.
How are you doing this week, sir?
Well, it's too early to tell since it's only Monday, but so far so good.
Well, it's kind of like, the week from last week to this week, since we don't really talk or record anything in between there, dude. So how was last week? How about that? Maybe that's the better question. How was last week?
It's like that John Oliver show.
Yeah, I'm not funny enough, and I'm not getting paid nearly enough to be like John Oliver.
Yeah, you and me both, sir. Oh, the week was good. I've been kind of enjoying all this rain. The only problem is it means I have to mow my yard more.
Yeah.
Which means I have to mow my yard.
You can't get the wife out there to do it for you?
No. He used to.
Yeah, my wife went out and mowed the front yard on Saturday, and then I mowed the backyard on Sunday before the rains came.
Seeing all that I should have done, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So I expect a pygmy family to take up residence before I get my yard mowed, but that's neither nor there.
That's one advantage to having kids, since I'm up at the ass crack of dawn anyway. So I get that point during the day, especially on the weekends. Like Sunday, I think it was about 10 o'clock. I heard some other people in the neighborhoods mowing, and I'm like, you know what? I am really tired of dealing with my kids right now. I'm going to go out and mow. Like, they can't follow me out there. They can't mow. They asked me, they were doing something, and I told them they asked me where I was going, and I'm like, I'm going to go out and mow. They're like, can we go jump on the trampoline? No, you have to stay inside.
You're so mean.
Yeah. Just I needed 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But
now, Saturday we went and saw Captain America: Civil War for the second time.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit this, but I actually dozed off for probably, 10 minutes or so.
Oh, that's not good.
But that's not an indictment on the movie. It was an indictment on how freaking tired I was.
Yeah, stayed up a little bit too late the night before.
Yeah, Call of Duty called, and I couldn't send it to voicemail. I had to take the call.
Well, I don't play on the Xbox too much anymore, but the kids have gotten into playing soccer. They played one of the FIFA games down the street at one of the neighbors' house, and so they got home and were telling me all about it, and I'm like, well, I have a FIFA game. I have FIFA 13 is the latest one that I have. They're like, well, that's the one we were playing. I'm like, well, then here, you can play this one too. So now they've been playing that just about every night. So it's funny watching them because they'll be the best team and they'll play against some of the worst teams, and they were losing, and that was making them mad. And so I decided I would help them out and hooked up my third controller and started playing with them and making them at least feel a little bit better because they wouldn't get slaughtered. But I realized how bad they are at the game. Like, well, I guess they're not going to get any better if we don't play. So
there you go.
I've been playing that with them, which is taken out of my time to play any other video games. But it's not all bad. It's at least fun. Kind of brings back the playing, Reese, my oldest one, and I used to play a bunch of video games together. We would do that every evening before he would go to bed. And now with two of them, and them being 3 years apart, it's a little harder for me to get in on playing any of the games. It's usually the two of them playing. So the fact that they wanted me. Now they actually ask me, Dad, can you play FIFA with us? Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Well, if you insist, I'll play
Yeah.
the game.
That's the only time that somebody can ask me if I can play video games and I don't get a glare from my wife. Really? You're gonna play video games now?
Yeah, but the boys wanted to. It wasn't my idea.
Yeah, I mean they wanted to play and it was their, they're allowed to play for like 30 minutes before they go to bed. But tonight we didn't even do video games. Tonight we played board games. So we played me and the youngest one played Connect 4 and the oldest one and my wife played no stress chess, and my wife doesn't even know how to play chess. So,
Well, at least she wasn't stressed.
But so, but you got a board game in the mail today, right? Or over the weekend?
I got it today.
Today.
I received my copy of Cultists and Cthulhu from Prolific Games. So sometime we're going to have to call those guys and talk to them about it.
Yeah.
I haven't played the game yet because I just got it today, but I got the cool stuff like the Cthulhu coffee mug wearing the bunny slippers.
Beautiful.
Gotta love that.
Yeah.
The shiny aluminum dice.
Nice.
And, the decks of cards that come with it. Boom, boom, boom.
Awesome.
I can't wait to open this up and unleash it on the unsuspecting masses and let you know what I think. But I was pretty excited to get it. It was a Kickstarter that I backed. Shoot. That's the thing about Kickstarter. It seems like you backed it 5 years ago, but I'm sure it was only months. But
yeah,
we'll go with 5 years. Got it today, so pretty pumped about that. And what I like about it is the rules is basically one page front and back.
That's pretty awesome.
So even I can learn how to play this. I'll still screw it up, but
at least this one you can't leave out the Cylons.
That's right. Well, I'm sure there's something I can leave out.
Leave out the cultists.
Like the bro horse or something. I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see what happens when I finally dive into this thing. But I'm sure I was not the only one that received a nice little package on their porch today. So all of us prolific game fans are all excited right now because we have the new hotness.
New hotness.
To steal a line from Will Smith.
I think that's okay. I mean, he's not going to come asking for royalties, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, well. If he did, I would be excited because that meant he'd listen to the podcast. So
that is true.
It's a win-win.
Or at least his lawyers listen to it.
Exactly. Somebody. 5 separation, isn't that what it is?
Speaking of people listening to it, I got a text message today, this evening actually, that said, "Hey, I'm going to start watching Critical Role because you talked about it on Geek Vice," and it was from a number that I didn't know, and I'm like, I don't know who this number is. I don't even recognize his area code because, I don't memorize area codes.
What?
And so my text back was, "That's great. Who are you?"
That is awesome. Who the hell
It happened to be a cousin of mine in Denver, Colorado, and he says he doesn't catch every episode, but the episodes he catches at Geek Vice he really likes. So maybe he'll listen to this one and hear the shout out for my cousin Michael.
Yeah, well, it's hard to take recommendations from people who live in Colorado because you just assume they've smoked too much pot, and so
Well, this
sorry, Morph's cousin.
Michael is somebody you don't want to play Flapjacks and Sasquatches with because you'll never get to go first.
Oh,
Because
beard.
he has a massive beard. So, and and I'm not talking like old man long beard. I'm talking about like just like Amish thick beard.
Like ZZ Top beard.
Yeah, just massively thick. It, and his wife won't let him shave it off because she says he has no chin. So he needs the beard to make him look like he has a chin. So we get a good laugh out of that one.
That's awesome.
He puts my beard to shame.
So does he live up in the mountains and he has a grizzly bear as a pet?
No, but he could.
Okay, just checking.
No, but he could. That is for sure. Well, since I haven't been playing very many games, I have decided I needed to find some new shows to watch on TV. I just haven't been real motivated to catch up on my other shows. You know, I'm still behind on The Flash and Arrow, and I'm closer to being caught up on The Blacklist. I'm a few episodes behind on that, but I haven't even started Legends of Tomorrow. But so I've been trying to find some other stuff to watch that just I could watch on Netflix, and I ran across one. I started watching House of Cards, which everyone's already watched House of Cards. They're all caught up. I hadn't seen it yet, so I'm starting back at episode 1 of season 1, and I gotta say, really good show. Like everybody else said, it's a really good show. I have one problem with it, though.
What's that?
My one problem isn't about the show at all. It's more about me. And I have to be in the right frame of mind to want to follow the political intrigue and the kind of not necessarily talking in circles, but the wheeling and dealing, the political dealings that go on in that, and be able to follow it all and keep up with it. There's been I'm only probably halfway through the first season, but there's been a couple times where I had to pause it, rewind a little bit, watch it again, because I'm like, I missed something. It's like I'm not getting the connection. I'm not getting the jive. And so what I found out is I think there's times where my brain just needs to be turned off, and House of Cards is not a show you can watch with your brain turned off.
So your biggest problem with the show is that you have ADD.
That's pretty much
what I heard.
Pretty much. So when I have those flashes of ADD and I decide tonight is not a good night for House of Cards, Netflix, and it's a Netflix original series. This one is called The 7 Deadly Sins. And before anyone looks it up, it is not about 7. It is actually based off of a manga comic book, however you want to say it. It's a Japanese comic book, and it's been turned into a Netflix original series, and it is an anime style. You have some of the girls have high-pitched voices. There's always a kid involved in there some way. But it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting little setup, and I'm really enjoying it. This one is definitely one where you can turn your brain off and just watch the show. Does not require a whole lot of thinking to keep up with it, but it's got enough little things. The main premise of the show is this battle between good and evil. So there's a group. There was a group of knights called the Holy Knights, and these were supposed to be the good guys that protect the cities and protect the kingdom. And there was basically a group of 7 warriors who were the strongest and best holy knights. And the kind of beginning of the show starts out with these 7 holy knights decided turned against the Empire and basically killed a large number of holy knights, other holy knights, and so they became marked as evil warriors and became known as the Seven Deadly Sins, and they were then nicknamed after the actual Seven Deadly Sins. So, as the show, within the first episode, you start realizing that there's a singular person. These seven deadly sins have been split off and went their own ways and have been hiding out, kind of disappeared in the world. And this one person is trying to find them and bring them back together. And her whole reason for bringing them back together is she believes that the holy knights that are still, quote unquote, protecting the Empire actually evil and are actually doing bad things and basically keeping the Empire imprisoned instead of protecting them. And that the only ones that can stop these holy knights are the Seven Deadly Sins. So it's an interesting concept, and I'm curious to see how far it goes with this idea, this balance between good and evil, and that this balance of good and evil, and this idea of that ultimate power or absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think that's how that saying goes, right?
Yes, you got it.
There you go. So it's a trope that you've seen before and it's been in other shows, but this one is just a different take on it, and I kind of like it. I'm having a good time.
It kind of answers a question. I don't know if answers a question is the right way to say this, but on these anime or heck, even our Marvel stuff that we watch, the bad guys always give themselves a name that pretty much is a neon sign saying bad guy. So,
Yeah.
You think, I'm going to be a bad guy. I'm going to call my team the Holy Knights. That should throw everybody off.
Yeah.
We're going to wear white. We're going to look like we're crossing guards. We're going to be
exactly
evil.
Exactly. And the person who is the sin of wrath is actually the good guy.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's definitely interesting. And it also kind of goes, most anime you can kind of go with, you can't judge a book by its cover. That trope is always in there because the sin of wrath is this, he looks like a kid. And he looks like, in the characters, it's not like it's just anime that makes him look like a kid. He is a kid in this thing. And everyone always asks, well, what's that kid doing with the sword? And the sword is actually just a broken sword. He just has the hilt on his back, and that's what he's also a tavern owner, that is on the back of a pig, a giant pig. So,
okay, now let me get this straight. We have a kid.
Yep.
Who walks around with a broken sword.
Yep.
Who happens to own a tavern.
Yep.
On top of a giant pig.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's I told you don't have to think a whole lot. You just get to watch it, and it's fun. It's at least the fight scenes are really good. I like that. As most anime has, the fight scenes are always really good and really kind of crazy out there. So I like it.
Well, if a kid owning a tavern on top of a, I guess
no,
fighting is.
yeah, it's all good and fun. So Kip and I, when we were trying to figure out what we were going to talk about for this episode, we came across this idea which reminded me of another TV show that I watched. And this TV show has come out, it came out back in 2010, ran from 2010 2014, and I caught a couple of these episodes. But it was presented by Stan Lee. and it's called Stan Lee's Superhumans, and it was on the History Channel. And it brought up this idea that there were actual superhumans or people with extraordinary powers, per se, quote unquote powers, uh, out there in the real world. And some of them, you looked at them and you're like, these are some parlor trick type stuff. There really could. But why couldn't it be? Why couldn't you have. Why couldn't these people actually be the beginnings of mutants? And what would the world be like if they were actually there? So, Kip, did you ever see this TV show?
I never watched it. I remember seeing that it was on the History Channel or whatever it was on, but I never really watched it. Now I'm kind of wishing I did.
Well, luckily you can go back, and the History Channel does have all the episodes online. You might even be able to find them on Netflix. Who knows? I didn't look to see if they're on Netflix or any of the other streaming services, but they're at least on their webpage. I'm on their webpage now, so I can see them. So I'm sure most people can. But and some of the stuff, one of the ones I saw is episode 4 of season 1, and it was called The Human Speed Bump. And it was basically about a guy who could, what was it? He could basically withstand a lot of pain. He could, he basically, the way they all demonstrate all their powers, all their abilities. They always do it on the show. And so he would lay down on the ground and actually had a truck drive over him. And they went through and explained, they had a ramp on each side of him to get the wheels up over. And they basically said because of physics, you can't actually just run over him because it would just pinch him. It wouldn't actually get the weight of the car on top of him to withstand it. So that's what the ramps were for, and they explained it all, how that works and physics and all that stuff of it. But it was interesting, it was kind of a neat show. You could take some of it as just complete and utter bullshit, but
which I usually do.
Yeah. There was another one that was later on that I saw. I think it might have been in the 3rd season. I think it was called Rapid Fire, I think was the episode, looking at him here. And it was a guy who can basically fire a handgun faster than an automatic weapon. So, and this guy, I remember this guy because he was shooting he shoots like a little revolver, a 6-shooter revolver. And he had it in a holster that was by his hip, and he was just a quick draw to where they would throw a can, like a aluminum, like a can of soup, an empty can of soup, throw it up in the air, and he would do like the Old West thing where he would do a quick draw and shoot this can, and could shoot it from his hip just real quick. And he never brought the gun up to where he was looking down the sight. It was always just from his hip, and he would hit that can every time and just keep this thing up in the air. It was really kind of cool to watch. I'd never seen anybody do that. And this guy actually, he's on, I mean, it's Wikipedia, so it could be made up, but he supposedly holds some records for the fastest shot. He can empty a 5-shot revolver in 0.57 seconds in a group the size of a playing card.
Damn.
So to me, that's pretty impressive. Now, whether that's a superhuman ability or whether that's just muscle memory, but really, why couldn't muscle memory be the ability to fine tune it like that? Why couldn't that be a mutation?
Well, see, that's the gray area. Is it a mutation, or is just this guy done this so many times, practiced and practiced and practiced, and had a natural affinity for it in the first place, got this good?
Yeah.
Or, is he superhuman? And if you extrapolate that out, then maybe a guy who can throw a baseball 103 miles an hour, maybe he's superhuman. I can't do it. Can you do it?
Yeah. No. No, I can't. And I would say it would also come down to, I think the other thing that you have to take into account on that is how many people can do it. This, as far as I know, well, and as far as I can't really say as far as I know because I don't know everybody, but is this the only guy who can do this? He's obviously the fastest guy that can do it. So maybe somebody who throws a baseball, like you brought up the baseball analogy, what if maybe if, there's what, 10 people in Major League Baseball, maybe 20 that can throw 100 miles an hour. But what if there's only one person that can throw 105?
Right.
Maybe that is just the next level. And so the other thing that kind of makes me think about this is like, okay, so in comic books, when it comes to mutations, you see an on-off switch. Really, you don't see an evolution of mutations. You see something that's just, it's either on or it's off, and it hits them at a certain time, a certain action happens, and boom, this mutation unleashes. Another example of seeing that is in one of the new trailers for the new X-Men movie, the Age of Apocalypse, or is it Age of Apocalypse or just Apocalypse?
I think it's just Apocalypse.
X-Men Apocalypse. In that trailer, you see Scott Summers in school. Looks like maybe high school age, and his eyes start hurting him in class, and he goes to bathrooms washing his face. Some kid comes in to beat him up because he thinks he's staring at his girlfriend, and Scott hides in the bathroom stall, and then all of a sudden his powers trigger, and full optic beams shoot out of his eyes and just leave a huge trail of destruction going straight forward. And as he looks up, it tracks it all the way up through the ceiling, and you just see this this carnage from it. It's just this destroying the building that way. So that's kind of the idea of it's just being on and off. Could some of these mutations, could some of these be superpowers that we're seeing in maybe Stan Lee's show, or even a pitcher who can pitch the fastest baseball? Maybe what we're starting to see there is a power set evolving over time, and maybe this is the beginning of it. Maybe we're going to start seeing the human evolution, and instead of being a quick, fast, crazy, jump evolution, we're seeing the gradual evolution, and
that's possible. I mean, in the like you said in the comic books, he hits mutant puberty, we'll call it, and now all of a sudden he can pretty much cut steel with a laser that comes out of his eyeball.
Right.
Let's try to think of that. How would it actually take place if something like that were to happen? And maybe it starts where the guy can burn ants like you would with a magnifying glass, but just with his eyeballs.
Yeah.
All in something nobody notices, and maybe that person didn't even know they could do it.
Right. And it's not even like that you see anything. Maybe it's even just that you can just stare at, you're just looking at the ants, and then all of a sudden the ants start, sizzling like you do with a magnifying glass or something like that. Some of the, or even the other another evolved thing. There's one of the things on the superhuman was a guy um, who could hold his breath for a ridiculous amount of time. I'm trying to find where it's at. Hold his breath up to 20 minutes. You know, maybe that's the, you know, um, just that evolution, that change in that mutation or whatever could be passed down through his generations, and maybe somebody down the road can hold his breath for, or maybe not even need to hold his breath. Maybe he can just breathe underwater. Like he can just, or maybe he doesn't need to breathe at all. He can be somebody who can withstand non-atmospheric conditions, can spend time in space without a mask, without oxygen.
That's possible. And maybe, 3 generations from now, that starts to become apparent for
Right.
his bloodline. And see, that's the thing is, when we watch X-Men or hell, even Deadpool, the mutation comes on, like you said, an off-on switch kind of a thing.
Right.
Deadpool, he had to go through hell because he had the gene, but he needed to go through hell for it to turn on, basically. And, maybe we all have this gene and don't know it. And, 1,000 years from now, humans can do a bunch of crazy stuff that we never thought possible.
Right.
With all that said, the thing I always, when I watch these movies, I always wonder about, what if the mutants, metahumans, whatever you want to call them, were real? Would we have the same reaction to them? And I always feel like in the comics and in the movies and everything, the people who don't have that overreact. They, all of a sudden, it's humans versus mutants, and which bugged me in the first place, because what are mutants? They're humans. So it's humans versus humans. Would we have the same reaction? Maybe we would, if a bunch of them banded together and started robbing banks and killing people and doing really bad things. But if they just came out and could do this stuff, and I don't know if we would stand up and go, hey, they're way too powerful, we need to stop this. I don't know if we would do that.
See, and I think there would be a fine line to it. I don't think it would be in the comic books and in the movies, it comes off as almost a racial black versus white type thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
A very hard line. I think if we were to see this in life now, and maybe we are seeing it, I think it also comes down to that evolution. So in the movies and in the comic books, you see that drastic change, and all of a sudden their power sets go from nothing to 10. Where if we're starting to see stuff now and it's at a 1 or a 2, and then the next generation in 20, 30 years, you see it go up to a 3 or 4, and you see that gradual increase in power sets. And then I think you're going to start, I don't think you would have as much uproar over it. I think it would just become, hey, this is just normal. There's people who can do things that nobody else can do. I don't see anybody going out and saying, oh, hey, this guy can withstand the weight of a Humvee driving over him. We need to watch out for him, or this guy who can quick draw a revolver faster than anybody else in the world. We need to watch out for him. Like, we all look at it and go, wow, that's just somebody who can do something better than the rest of us. That's part of the norm now. We know we're all different, and we all have special abilities. We can all do something special, and these people just have something that we've never seen anyone else do. So I think you're right in that sense. But if we were to start seeing, if we would start to see something go to an extreme, if we could see somebody who, um, I can't even think of anything that would that without going straight to the comic books, if we could see somebody like Storm, somebody who could cause rain to fall or could dry up, flooded areas. If we could see that and that person chose to help at a, but not go to the extremes of, well, you piss me off, I can make a tornado and run it down the street and destroy everything. I think that's the level. Like, that's kind of going to be the deciding factor on whether or not you see a humans versus mutants type situation. Are these people, what does the one of the characters on the show was a guy who could, with a samurai sword, could actually cut a bullet in the air, could actually deflect a bullet with his sword. He had that quick of reflexes. Somebody would fire a gun at him and he could hit it with his sword and stop it from hitting himself. Like, now, if that guy were to go in and start going after cops, trying to rob a bank, and as he's getting away, just deflecting bullets left and right, then maybe you're right. Maybe we would start to see that, hey, wait a second, these people have a power set that we can't control. But you don't see that yet. At least we don't hear about it. Maybe there is I don't think they put people who have been convicted of a crime, and I'm not sure somebody who has a power set that's going to help them rob banks. I don't think they're going to make the History Channel. But maybe
this is true. It's just, I look at the climate we have today, and there are people who may not be mutants, but we'll just call them the one percenters.
Mm-hmm.
They have a special set of abilities that most of us do not have. Those abilities can wreck our ability to live a comfortable life, say cause us to lose all our jobs, make it so things are unaffordable, all these things. And we don't rise up against that.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
we haven't.
Well, true. But we haven't just stood back, here we're going to walk the fine line of getting into a political conversation, but you're right, but in the politics, kind of in a sense, that's what our politics allow us to do, is to stand up against a group that maybe seems to have too much control over another. What I would go with is I would almost go that it's hard to say, because here you go. We've got these things like transgender bathroom things going on right now, and we had with rights activists, human rights activists fighting for the LGBT. I'm gonna get the letters mixed up or something, but
good enough for me. Yeah.
Fighting for their rights. And the same way, back during the civil rights movement, you had people fighting for rights of African Americans, and now you have Mexican Americans and all these people trying to fight for these same human rights. But we don't seem to be taking away the rights of people who have a special ability, because that special ability seems to be at this level instead of at this level, which no one can see that on the podcast, me raising my hand up and down as I think about that.
Well, this is true, but I don't know. I guess to me, I look at it as if all of a sudden one day a group of people were able to do things like manipulate metal like Magneto does, or shift change into somebody else completely, and all the stuff that they exhibit on X-Men. If a group of people were actually able to do that, I would not freak out about it as much as I would be like, man, this is totally sucks that I didn't get that. and I'd also be aware that one day probably everybody's going to have that.
Okay, now
the evolution.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because although I am not caught up 100% on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I know you haven't been watching this season, right?
It's been a while. Yeah, we're going to catch back up, but we haven't been yet.
So that conversation is actually even had in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because the Inhumans have started popping up more because of I don't know, the Terrigenesis, or the Terrigen gas has gotten into the water, which has gotten into the fish oil. So there's these vitamins that were going around, and basically it was causing people to go through Terrigenesis if they took this stuff or if they were around it. And so you start seeing more and more of it. Well, Bobby, Adrian Palicki's character, Bobby Morris, and Hunter, who's Nick Blood's character, I think Nick Blood, I think that's the right name. They almost have this same kind of conversation, and Hunter has a conversation with Daisy, Quake, who is an Inhuman, over this idea of, it's great that you got powers, but I kind of want to have powers too. Like, what about me? And I've thought about taking this stuff to see what happens, but if you take them and it doesn't, and you don't have that genetic marker to allow you to gain powers, it's going to kill you. So your choice is death, or have powers, or sit there and just say, yeah, I'm okay with just who I am, type thing. But it's that idea that eventually, I think they even make this comment in the TV show at one point, that, eventually everyone's going to have powers, because eventually everyone's going to succumb to Pandora's box, and they're going to attempt it, and they're either going to die or get powers. And so eventually everyone's just going to have powers. And
absolutely.
So I think you're right. And I think it will be interesting. I think it would be interesting to see what would happen. And I don't think you're completely wrong, but I also think, in the same way, you and I might not freak out over somebody having powers, but there's going to be somebody who does, and there's going to be some officials. Even you go back to the Civil War movie, and this idea that, hey, there's these group of people that maybe they're not mutants, maybe they don't have mutant powers, but they have superhuman powers. There's not just anybody who can be like Captain America. There's not just anybody who can shrink down like Ant-Man. There's not somebody who, there's not another person that's a genius like Tony Stark, or that has an Iron Man suit. There aren't anyone like them. And because of the property damage, because of the loss of normal, quote unquote, there's my air quotes, because of the loss of normal people, of average humans, because of that loss of life, those people are now put on a different level. They are now treated differently. So you have, and I'm sure they didn't even, I don't even know if they touched this in Civil War, because they really just dealt with this, the superhero aspect of it. But what about the people? In the comic books of Civil War, the humans were even split. The non-superheroes were even split. There were people that were all for hiding the people who didn't want to register their powers, and then there were humans that were like, no, they must register. It split everybody, and so I think you would see a human versus mutant type situation, whether it would be to the extreme or maybe it would just be the vocal minority. I don't know. But it would be interesting.
I don't
to
know
find
either.
out.
I mean, it's like, okay, so there in Civil War, there's the scene where Tony Stark's at MIT, and he goes out into the hallway to get away from it all, and there's this woman standing there at the elevator, and she basically confronts him because her son died in
Sokovia.
Sokovia. Thank you. I all of a sudden I couldn't pronounce it, and she basically says, "You killed my son." And I'm thinking, if I'm Tony Stark, I would have said, well, fuck you, bitch. If it wasn't for me, you'd be dead too. None of us would have survived. So I don't feel too fucking bad that a few thousand died here. That's kind of my take on this. They did something that prevented basically extinction. Yeah, a bunch of people died. Boo fucking who. It's better than everybody dying.
Yeah.
And they didn't. If I was one of the Avengers, that's the tact I would have taken. It's like, okay, next time shit goes down, we're not going to do a damn thing about it and see how long you fucking last.
Yeah.
Because
No.
that was my reaction. I was actually angry at this lady. Like, that is completely unfair. They saved the world. And yeah, it's sad. Your son died. I feel bad for that. But it was him dying with us saving it, or everybody dying with us doing nothing. Take your pick.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The greater good, that's the greater good trope that's in everything. I mean, you see that in today, even without superhumans, without Tony Stark in his Iron Man suit. But you're always going to have the mindset of that doesn't care about the greater good, that just wants what they want.
Well, see, and I could understand her point of view if her son was in the military, got sent over to fight an unnecessary war.
Sure.
Well, maybe like we've had recently, and gets killed, then she has a right to be that pissed off and actually blame the president, saying you killed my kid.
Right.
I'm good with that. But this wasn't an unnecessary war. He just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It happens. The world is not
right. Well, yeah, and there's all kinds of different ways we can go down with that. But I can't argue with you there. I think you are right. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you.
But I'm causing you to stutter.
Yeah, kind of, because I don't know how to counter it. Like, and that's where maybe we need some people to email in and tell Kip why he's full of crap. But
yeah, there's a long list of people who want to tell me that. Go ahead.
You're right. You are right in that sense, but in that same kind of idea, you think about the person, you think about the car wreck, or that didn't need to happen on the highway that did. That doesn't make the loss of that person any easier to take. Now I
No,
know
but
that's
you
not.
also don't make sure cars are banned.
That is true. That is true. You know, the idea of accidents happen and whether something's preventable or not. And but if you get you know, it's I don't know if it's the same thing or not. Maybe this is a bad analogy, but you know, somebody gets killed by a drunk driver. Um, Drunk driving's illegal. You know, they make them want to ban drunk driving because of the greater good. They do illegal stops of people. You know, the DUI checkpoints that they run and all across the United States are technically illegal because they don't have a right. They don't have a probable cause to pull you over, but it's for the greater good, and so every court, you know, judges are going to are going to do that because it is the greater good. So you're going to have to deal with that inconvenience of getting pulled over, even if you haven't been drinking, um, just because it's of the you know, if they pull over, if they stop one person from driving that night, then that's the greater good. You know, maybe they
Right,
did save
but
a life.
preventing Ultron from wiping out humanity is not illegal.
Well, I know, and that's where I said maybe that was a bad example. I don't. I, yeah, and I guess it's hard. It's hard to sometimes it's hard to take these and twist them into reality. But I think with the direction, I mean, you see what's going on in technology now. We've got self-driving cars. We have AI keeps getting developed and tweaked even more. You're starting to see things like exoskeleton type suits that they're trying to develop for the military. Um, Hell, you're seeing some people do it just for the fun of it. Um, that are basically the early stages of an Iron Man suit. You know, that's you see all this stuff, and then you see the movies, and um, you know, I had read an article a while back of like Star Trek and some of the things that you saw in Star Trek of actually, you know, actually came into reality. That you see early type things of cell phones in Star Trek and the wireless communicators, and we haven't seen teleportation yet, which I would really like to see that because that would make my life so much easier. But you know, it's you know, we do start to see that stuff, and so maybe I don't know if it'll be in our lifetimes, but um, things keep going and movies start becoming reality. We might see it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and that's fine. And honestly, you know, if people's powers just showed up and it's only a handful of people and they're super overpowered, I do think there's going to be measures taken. Well, the point is I was trying to make is I don't think those powers are going to all of a sudden show up overnight. They're just going to, if they do ever happen, it's going to be gradual over hundreds of years, and by the time people are that powerful, everybody's going to be that powerful.
Yeah, or
And,
or it's just gonna become the norm. But
yeah,
you know, and that's a kind of I agree with you there, and I think that's um, you know, I also think it's a good way. I think the 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 mutant type movies and things like that are even good right now because they preach that tolerance that you know we're all different, we're all special in some way or another.
oh yeah, and that's I think that's the whole thing.
And
It is it's their way of showing us how stupid racism is, and it's their way of showing us how dumb it is to hate each other because of religious beliefs, and
yeah,
that I can totally get behind.
yeah,
But I just got to thinking the other day, it's like, would we really overreact like this to mutants? And
hell, we overreact to bathrooms.
it's true. You make a valid point there. So I will have to say I lost this argument.
I don't think there's any winning or losing in this argument because you and I are of the same mindset. You and I think a lot of things similar, and there's a lot of crazy people out there in the world, and they are special too. So you guys can email us at geekvice@gmail.com. We'll go ahead and put a fork in this one, and you can give us your thoughts on mutants in the world today, whether or not we're going to see some in the near future, whether we've seen some now. Let us know if you've seen the Stan Lee's Superhuman show on the History Channel, or maybe you should email us if you have a superhuman ability. I'd like to. Maybe that'd be kind of cool. We can get one of you guys on.
You're totally gonna have to come on and prove it.
Yeah, we'll have to meet up so we can see what this is, and I'll buy you a beer if you're old enough. I don't want to get in trouble selling to minors. So you guys can also check out our blog at geekvice.blogspot.com. You can also follow us on Google Plus or Facebook, facebook.com/geekvice. You can follow us on Twitter, that man over there, at Kip Killigan. You can follow me at Geekvice. And next week, I think we might talk about some games. We might talk about some board games. We might talk about some video games. And we might talk about a new D&D character that got rolled over the weekend. And Mr. Kip has decided to join the D&D world again, and is going to jump back into the campaign that I'm a part of and that Brad is running. So we've talked about it on the show before. Kip is going to have a character on there, and we will talk more about that next week. What do you think about that, Kip?
I like it. My character is going to become the Achilles heel of the adventure group.
Oh, great! We got enough heals. We're never going to make it through anything. We barely survive each encounter. So, all right, guys. Thanks, everybody, for listening to our ramblings, and we will see you next week.
Later.